Kia ora. I just remembered something that I was meant to say before, but I didn't in regards to people going through ascensions. Um, Obviously, when you're chosen for an ascension, you're being removed from your dark space. You have to have a massive tower moment and hit rock bottom in order for you to seek salvation, right? So you hit the underworld and you go through hell. Now, obviously, people who are chosen for ascensions are the creative empaths, the writers, the musicians, the creative minds, the creative genius, and that kind of genius, with your Mozarts and your Kurt Cobains and all that sort of thing. It always comes from a place of psychological and emotional trauma, because all creative empaths have the same pattern of child abuse, neglect, child abandonment, and divorces, broken homes, being bullied at school, being a social outcast, not being understood, and that really plays with your head, right? It affects you psychologically if you're around domestic abuse or people with addictions or people who are constantly having affairs and that sort of thing, because a child is the product of their environment. What you grow up to be as a person is a direct result to who raises you and what you experience growing up as a child, because you're fed society, and that society, whether it's in your your core territory, like your home, your parents, your family, your siblings, your friends, and then your wider outer territory, which is like school, the town you live in, the city you live in, teachers, relationships, wider network. That all feeds into, it's your air and your water and your oxygen and all of that. Like, it feeds you. It's what builds and molds and shapes you into the adult that you're going to become. Now, obviously, with my foundation, I'm going to take these children and replant their roots, so to speak, to feed them wholesome, healthy, nurturing support and love and food and protection, and create a safe environment for them, like a little greenhouse, and repot their plants and water them and nurture them. But a lot of them are coming from, like I've said before, diagnoses of mental illnesses that they don't deserve, because the people diagnosing them have no clue how to handle a creative, empathic mind and all that sort of thing. So, I'm coming along and I'm going to be taking them and putting them in my little greenhouse and being my little Mother Nature and Mother Earth self, and repotting them and, feeding them all the healthy ways to deal with life as they grow up. Now, one of the things that a lot of creative empaths suffer from is anxiety, and even things like paranoia, especially if you've been diagnosed with things like schizophrenia, and which is ascension psychosis, basically, because these doctors don't know what they're talking about. Paranoia, anxiety, panic attacks, that sort of thing. So I came up with what I call AED, aversion, eversion, diversion tactics. Okay, so what you have to do is, when you're having a panic attack, when you're going through, a moment of anxiety or paranoia or fear, and it's coming from an unknown source, like you don't know why you're feeling it, or maybe you do know you're feeling it, but you don't know how to control it. Instead of using medication and unhealthy ways to counteract it, to sort it out, I came up with AED, which is, you distract your mind with a physical action, because then it forces your brain to look away from the source of the anxiety and fear, and it helps calm you down. So with my parents who had suffered from, because it was actually because a mother whose ex-husband had killed himself and their kids out of spite, for personal reasons, obviously confidentiality, I'm not going to go into it, but she used to suffer from horrendous panic attacks, where she was hyperventilating, and to the point where she like passed out because of the lack of oxygen to the brain and all of that. And but she didn't want to have to keep taking the medication that the doctor was prescribing her, because it wasn't healthy for her. She was having adverse side effects and stuff. So I came up with AED, aversion, eversion, diversion. So what I taught her to do, and then with my police officers and military personnel who were also suffering from anxiety and panic attacks and that because of PTSD, I would say to them, the second they have that paranoia, the second they have the anxiety, the second they have the panic attack, the minute they know that it's happening, instead of reaching for the alcohol or the drugs or the prescription pills or the violence or the acting out in that, to distract their mind with a physical activity. And what I would get them to do, and this is what I'm recommending for all of you if you need it, in order to calm yourself down, because your brain is happy when it's doing something. Your body's natural instinct is to constantly be doing things, like even if it's just walking and talking or lifting, and by telling your brain what to do, it's an incredible distraction. And when you're suffering from anxiety or paranoia, or you're having a panic attack, what you need to do, once you immediately recognize that it's what's happening, I used to say to them, do things like count the rings on your fingertips, or count your fingers, or count like the tiles on the floor, or the dots on the ceiling, or the little flowers on the curtain, but to use your finger to do it. So physically, manually get your finger and your pointing finger and use your finger to count the flowers, or count the fingerprints, or count the fingers, or count, but use your finger to do it. Don't just look at it and say with your eyes, follow it with your eyes. Actually use your finger and point. And by telling your brain to use your finger to point, it distracts the brain from the trauma, because it's forcing the brain to work to do something constructive, which then makes your brain happy, and it releases serotonin. And if it's like stroking a cat, for example, force yourself to stroke your cat, or to even count the fur on your dog's tail or whatever, but use your hands to do it. By telling your brain to use your hands to do this manual activity, it completely calms you down, and it stops the paranoia and stops the anxiety. Now the thing is, what I actually discovered was, if you suffer from it really bad, or even if you don't, but what I discovered is that within 2.5 weeks of doing that, you don't have paranoia anymore. After a month and a half of doing it, the anxiety goes, you stop suffering from anxiety, and within 2 months, you stop having panic attacks. Like, you don't have them anymore, because then your brain recognizes the trauma response and immediately gets you to do a physical activity, even if it's like playing tic-tac-toe, or like your brain becomes trained to automatically do something physical in order to deal with it, and then you don't suffer from it anymore. That's what I found. And then, because what it does is it gets people off the medication, which is what I'm a big proponent of. Medication by choice, not by force. But I don't know anyone who's on that kind of medication who's happy to be on it. Sorry, I need to correct that. I don't know anyone who's on an ascending path that is happy taking the medication because it's unnecessary. It's chemicals that are destroying the body and destroying the brain, and it's just basically the pharmaceuticals industry's way of controlling you, and doctors who don't know how to deal with you, because psychiatry and psychology, they're not interested in finding the root cause of the problem. They just want to give you the easy way out so that they don't have to deal with you. Any doctor that is quick to prescribe you a medication that you don't need for, like, say, an infection or whatever, the unnecessary stuff, when they're quick to prescribe that, they don't care about your mental health. All they care about is they're basically drug dealers, legal drug dealers, and it's not constructive. And they're putting kids and even cats and dogs on these medications with the express purpose of shutting down free thinking, which, to a creative, empathic mind, if you're a writer, a musician, an engineer, a mathematician, or whatever, a scientist, a designer, whatever, that's a death sentence. And I'm here to liberate people. I'm here to turn people into butterflies, not moths. So that's just a little bit of advice there. You don't have to take it, obviously, but I think you'll find if you suffer from panic attacks or fear, or emotional outbursts, paranoia, anxiety, whatever, and you don't know how to control it, and you don't want to switch to medications or an unhealthy way to deal with it, then AED, aversion, eversion, diversion, and then it goes. And then I've been able to get so many people off the medication, it's not funny. So, and that's what I'm going to do with the kids. Like, I know how to distract them with a healthy way of dealing with the trauma. So all adults who suffer from, psychological issues, it's coming from a place of unhealed childhood wounding, even if it's started in the womb, because the baby inside the womb looks for the energy that it received when it was inside the womb. So, like, for example, if the mother was dealing with domestic violence, or a husband, a baby daddy that was constantly cheating, then when the baby grows up, they will seek relationships where they're constantly cheating or where they're constantly being cheated on, because it's what they know. They feed off the energy, because, as I keep saying, energy is transferable just like an STD, and none more so than when the baby's in the womb. So, so I'm trying to feed positive energy and show these kids how to deal with things in a healthy way, so that by the time they become adults and they're ready to step into their professions or their careers, or, their chosen life path for their future, they're not like Kurt Cobain and, the Mozarts and all that, where it's depression and violence and addictions and unhealthy trauma response patterns and that sort of thing. So just a bit of advice there. It's there if you want it. You don't have to listen, but I just thought I'd share. So hold your head up high, know that you're loved, and I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō.